Hey YouTube, Awesome Rider here. Welcome to my review for King-Ohger episode 17. A really strong episode coming off of last week, kind of coming off of the more B-plot of last week, as we had Yanma and Gira fighting off against the Ragnarok forces after the supposed treaty. We pick up with that, with Racles coming in on the iPad announcing like, yeah, I did a peace treaty, of course, but it was only for Shu Goddamn, of course. And then Yanma's like, Shu Goddamn! And he's of course like, bend the knee, and we'll all become one, you'll all be under my rule, and I'll have more power, and it'll be peace for everybody. Classic Racles shenanigans. Honestly, I'm so curious about like where his character is gonna go. Like, usually they have some sort of redemption for these type of Rogue Ranger characters. Don Murasame's was a little bit different since they barely even used him, but still, he fought alongside him at the end, and obviously Stacy's storyline about redemption was a major arc in the Zenkaiger series. But like Racles, maybe I'm just not paying attention enough, but I haven't really seen very much that shows he's redeemable. I guess he looks kind of like a pseudo-loving brother in the flashbacks, but in regards to the performance of adult Racles, I haven't seen even a glimmer of redemption. I kind of hope they don't, just because that's, kind of boring. But anyway, that basically sets the stage of this episode, and they resurrect like one of their biggest villains, the Ragnarok dude called like Dai Shogun or whatever, and that's like the name of a mecha or something, but they resurrect this major bad guy that helped in the past, when I guess they give a little bit of backstory, which is actually kind of cool, about the villains, about how they once were kind of anarchists, and then they basically just fought to figure out who leader would be, and then this general was like instrumental in their old conquering, and they resurrected them. And they're like, didn't you know that they resurrected this guy, Racles? Like, they're not going to hold the treaty. He's like, yeah, of course. I helped them. It was me, Barry. I wasn't in the Flash movie. He actually helped them by helping resurrect this big monster. It's an interesting design. It's a very big, menacing design. It's kind of ugly, to be honest. Not like in I think it looks bad way, but there's been some really cool and clever designs in this series, and this one's just kind of big and ugly. Again, it's not really bad or anything like that. But he's like the main antagonist of this episode. Of course, you have Gira wanting to fly off the handle, and then Yanma actually ties him up to stop him from flying off the handle and getting in the way, because Gira's shtick definitely gets annoying. I've mentioned this in previous weeks. People keep explaining to me like why Gira acts the way he does, and it's like, I do know why. It's just that type of performance just annoys the piss out of me. Even if like I 100% understand the reasons or even agree with the reasons, I'm just not a fan of that performance, but I understand like why he does it. There's also a nice scene between Rita and Jeremy, where he ends up like laughing it off by talking about, almost mocking Toku motivational speeches. He's like, these motivational speeches are never going to work. But Rita gives this kind of nice little speech about them all working together and leaning on each other and stuff. There was also a beat too, really quickly before I forget it, with the Black Ranger talking to Yanma about how he hadn't revealed to Racles yet that Gira is alive, which obviously that happens by the end of the episode. But that was interesting because it was really funny. Like, literally a minute before that, I was just thinking, hey, how come he hasn't told Racles about it if he's totally on his team? And so I guess that shows, obviously, which we know, he's never fully on one side. But it was just funny that it was almost like the episode was psychic. I was thinking about, like, hey, is he going to tell him about it? And then they immediately address it. He's like, hey, I didn't know she didn't tell him about that. I'm like, oh my god, did he hear me in my head thinking about that? It was a really nice episode for Yanma, as basically it's about Racles yet again wanting Yanma to bend the knee, but of course he won't. He's determined till the end. He refuses, to join Racles, and like, he's beating up Yanma in front of like the townspeople, and like, it's really funny. Not really funny. This is the funny part comes later, but it's like, how are these townspeople so in support of Racles, seeing him do that? But before he is about to finish him, that's when Gira shows up, reveals he is alive, and there's a nice moment between him and Gira. Despite me not being necessarily Gira's biggest fan, I do like that dynamic. I mentioned last week how it was nice to get something between Rita and Himeno, as we haven't had a lot of bonding between the cast, except for these two, which I really have liked their dynamic and their growing friendship. And this was a nice moment, kind of culmination for it. Pretty nice return scene for Gira too. This was the funny moment I was talking about, where, like, when he shows up, you have, like, when he's doing his whole, like, I'm a King Toku character, blah, 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 I'm annoying. You have, like, half the people being like, oh my god, and then his friends are like, yay! And I don't know, I just thought that was really funny. But just that shtick is not serving his public image well. He needs to get a new PR guy. But they're probably not going to turn this into PR, so I guess he's just kind of stuck. But anyway, that's basically where the episode ends, setting up the conflict between him and Racles. And then next week, I guess we're already getting our power up, which it just seems kind of soon. There's so many stuff that's happening soon, like the Sixth Ranger in this. Makes you wonder if there's going to be any surprises in the back half we don't really know about. Also, it's worth noting, during the Mecha fight this week, in Jeremy's attempt to, like he says in the episode, not relinquish his role as the main character, he creates like an imperfect, incomplete version of the combination between the ultimate King-Ohger combination and Tarantula, which just basically is the same thing but without the helmet, more or less. But what's cool about it is the way he does it is it's like the spider strings holding it together and controlling it like a puppet, which was just really cool and like really fitting, and I really liked that, the way that worked, and it was kind of a nice little preamble lead-in, and again, it's just nice having that pacing and lead-in and not so much back-to-back debuts. The last thing I wanted to touch on before I scored it was, obviously, you know, this week when in the Mecha battle you have Racles showing up in King-Ohger Zero and in the silver suit, which is more gray-silver, the Gilver suit. And I just wanted to say, I meant to mention this a couple times in the last few weeks' reviews. There wasn't really a good place to mention it, though, but I really like the way they've handled the pacing and balance of Ohsama and Spider Kimonos, because obviously over the last couple years we've kind of had the debuts of the Six Ranger and the Rogue Ranger kind of stepping on each other and debuting kind of close. I think Zenkaiger was the only one where it really felt clunky. You know, Don Murasame's wasn't so bad, it just was kind of shoved in there, but it didn't necessarily ruin the pacing. And these two debuted kind of close together, but they didn't feel smushed together, and they've had a restraint using Ohsama so that, like, neither one got overshadowed in their debut, and there's been a nice balance to that, and I wanted to highlight that. But overall, a strong episode that sets up for what looks to be another strong episode next week, a 4 out of 5 for this one. Let me know what you thought of this week's episode in the comments. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you get notifications for my videos. Awesome Rider, signing out.